Hello there and welcome to another episode of Cutting Through the Bullshit. I am your host, Dr. Stephanie Snyder, and I am a high performance mentor. Through my unique blend of strategy, mindset, and intuition, I help men and women to cut through the BS in order to create the life and business they desire. So today we're going to talk about, and I talked about this a little bit in a previous episode, the benefit of actually making a decision. And here is the problem. The problem isn't that you haven't found a solution. The issue is your identity has not been decided. You're leaving yourself open to all the possible options. Okay, so here's what this means. In a world where there is ample opportunity to be, do, have all the things, there is a serious issue with FOMO, the fear of missing out. And because there's such a big issue with FOMO, we tend to not make decisions. We tend to simply make choices and leave ourselves open to available options. And I was thinking about this on the run this morning because my previous episode, because you know I like to batch episodes. If you've been with me for a while, you know I typically batch the episodes on Tuesdays and then they are trickled out to you. But I'm the most creative on Tuesday. I guess I just do that to myself, but nevertheless. And so on my run this morning, the thing that was coming up for me was around relationships. And I kept getting all these little one-liners that were coming through. And the one that we're going to dive into today is, it's a lack of decision that's the problem. In a world of so many distractions, keeping your options open actually stops you from making any kind of impact at all. And it just hit, it hit hard, and not hard in like the sense of like, you suck, Steph, but it was just very eye-opening to look at it from that perspective, because there is a real culture of FOMO where if you don't know the thing, or you're not part of the thing, or you're not the trendiest, you're not this, you're not that, it can feel like you're left behind and you don't belong. And what I've actually found is really quite enjoyable is what's been termed as JOMO, joy of missing out. And this is the thing that is actually the most powerful, because one, you've decided who you are, and anything that's not that doesn't become a distraction to you, right? You get not laser focused that you can't have fun, right? Because I think sometimes when people think about the idea of being focused, they feel like they might be pigeonholing themselves. And you can be focused on who you're becoming or who you're unbecoming, and also leave a bunch of room in there for change. Because the real work is an identity shift. When you decide that you are X kind of a person, or Y kind of a person, right? Having nothing to do with chromosomes, right? When you decide that you are this or you are that, sometimes we feel as if we've made the decision, and so we can't go back and we can't change it. We can't choose differently, essentially, because we've decided that this is who we are and this is how we show up. And there are some levels to your identity in which it's probably a non-negotiable. It is a decision that you made, right? So for me, one of the non-negotiables in my identity is that I am very intentional about my health and fitness. It is very rare that I will, quote unquote, fall off of the bandwagon. I eat 80-20, essentially. 80% of my meals are very, very clean. 20% of them are like chicken wings and margaritas. Just full disclosure. Okay. But that is the balance that works for me. because I have seen the extremes. I've never really been the candy junk food person. I've never gravitated to that. I've never been a huge soda drinker, like ever. Never been a super sweet toother. So I can't say I've gone all the way to that extreme, but I have gone all the way to the other extreme of like food craziness, nutrition nutsos, right? And that was just way too limiting for me to sustain long term. Did I see the benefits of it? Yes, absolutely. And sometimes I do revert back, or I'll increase it to like 95% instead of 80, depending on what I'm working on, right? And so I have that ability to adjust it. But my health and fitness is something that is a part of me. That is part of my identity. And there are other things that may have shifted in terms of my identity over the years. And it's not like a crisis, right? People are like, oh, I'm going through a midlife crisis. And you're like, it's an identity crisis, right? Like, it's not necessarily that I'm suggesting happen. And sometimes those things do happen. And it's a good way to kind of clean the slate and start over sometimes, right? Everybody's different. But what I'm talking in terms of here is like, not all of the things that you identify with have to be so hard and fast that you lose yourself if that changes. So I identify as a runner. However, if I couldn't run, right? Like when I shattered my kneecap 8 years ago, if I couldn't run, I would still consider myself an athlete because I started biking when I wasn't actually approved to run, cleared to run after my injury. I was cycling. Or I was doing, this may be cray-cray for you, but I remember like 2 days after the accident, my leg was in a full brace, totally immobilized, and I was doing push-ups. One-legged push-ups because I could put no weight on that leg, and so I threw up my right leg on top of my left leg, and I was doing one-legged push-ups because that is just who I am. Now, is there a time and a place when I give myself rest for injuries? Yes, absolutely. I just took a week off because I was having issues with my sciatic nerve. Right? And so there is a time and a place for those things, but I would never not call myself an athlete. And maybe you're thinking, okay, Steph, you've gone on a rabbit trail. Let's land the plane. Where are we headed? So when it comes to this, in a world of distractions, right? Because there is always something else, right? There's something else that you could be, that you could do, that you could have. But it won't all be satisfying and fulfilling for you. Some of it might feel really quite empty, actually. And that is part of the work that I do, is kind of clearing out the clutter, where you strip away all the stuff that you're doing just to avoid yourself so that you can actually do the thing that you're really good at and that you love to do anyways. But that is part of the deception, I guess, is that there's so much to choose from that where do you start? Honestly, when you could do have anything in this world, how do you begin to decide what's even right for you? And that takes an honest conversation with yourself. And those are fun conversations. Not always. Sometimes they're really uncomfortable conversations when you have to meet yourself where you are. But the beauty of them is the stuff that comes through from it. Because when you can strip away the fact that, like, I remember for years I told myself that I was going to make enough money to retire my husband from the military. For years I said that. I never did. Because it wasn't actually what he wanted. Because I didn't actually take the time to say, hey, babe, do you want to get out of the military at 16 years? No. He said, I'm going to stay in for 20. I'm going to get the pension and whatever comes with it. I've already done the 16, so let's just finish it out. But I had tried to get that identity from somebody else. And when you try on all these different identities, if you're aligned enough, you can start to like feel which one works and which one doesn't work, right? Not everybody wants to do a high rocks run like I'm getting ready to do with a friend. It's literally CrossFit with a 1,000-meter run in between these events. That's not for everybody. Triathlons are not for everybody. And you're allowed to try things and to change your mind. But it's the decisions that really make that impact. Because if you spend your whole life not deciding who you are, then you're just a little bit of everybody else, which isn't so powerful. It's actually quite watered down. And so when you can take the time to have those conversations with yourself, to sit down and say, you know what, if we stripped all of these things away, who am I? What do I love? If there was no judgment, if there was no shame, how would I spend my day? Who do I want to be? Because chances are, not chances, I know, 100%, that there are people who are going to love you when you are fully yourself. There are people that love you when you're not fully yourself. And there's people that hate you when you're not fully yourself. But it's easier when you're fully yourself to handle the people that hate you. And hate is, I use it loosely. They may hate you. I don't know. I don't use that word very often. So I say all of this to say, sit down and spend some time and figure out who it is that you really want to be. And create a life from there. For instance, I knew from my college years, undergraduate school, I was probably 20 at the time. I knew that I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom in some fashion. And I have been fortunate to be able to do that. I have been able to work from home since my kids were young. I only worked away from my son for a very short period of time. I only worked out of the house of the 19 plus years that I've been a mother, I think I've only worked out of the house maybe 2 of those years. And it wasn't even a 9 to 5. It was like part-time work. And I've been very fortunate, but that was a decision that I made years ago. And it was one that I was not willing to change. I wanted to be present with my children as they grew up. And that's not the case for everybody. And that's okay. I have no judgment and no shame for somebody else who wants to climb the corporate ladder. That's great. It just wasn't for me. And that's okay. I have one of my best friends climbs the corporate ladder. And we still have plenty in common and plenty to talk about, right? So I just really want to encourage you to spend some time with yourself and decide who it is that you actually want to be. Because from that identity, it's very easy to make choices, daily choices throughout the day, once you know who you are or who you want to become. And then you make decisions from there, right? A lot of people use the analogy of a keypad, right, on the computer, okay? The screen is the output, and you're putting in the input, right? And if you keep hitting K on your computer keyboard, but you actually want S, it's an identity thing. S isn't going to show up as long as you keep hitting K. So if you keep operating with K, you're never going to get the S. Maybe that made sense. I hope it landed. Anyways. All right. Well, I'm going to sign off here. I hope that you are having an amazing rest of your day. I do love these conversations. I am pulled to begin to open kind of hot seat conversations where I help someone move through a perspective shift live. I'm toying with who I offer that to first, but that is probably going to be something that you'll see here in the future, because I do love my podcast and my YouTube. Those are not going anywhere. They're really fun for me. It really allows me to share my content, because oftentimes it is multifaceted. And so words on paper aren't always the best way to do it. So also I'm really animated, so it's fine. So I'm sending you a whole lot of love. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. And sidebar, I just have to say how great my skin looks right now. I just had a facial last week and it is just great. All right, I'm sending you a lot of love. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. And as always, be you, because the world needs more of you. Bye.